Hello and welcome to the debut edition of the Payoff. I'm Drew Goldfarb, joined by Rick Rockwell, and we're going to be diving into the world of professional wrestling, discussing storylines, ideas, and of course, potential payoffs on prop betting as well. This weekend is Money in the Bank, which might just be my favorite pay-per-view that is outside of WrestleMania every year. And so we've got a lot to talk about. All of the odds that we're going to be discussing here are from Bet Online. And we're going to start with the men's Money in the Bank match because this one, obviously, it's an 8-person field, Rick. There is an obvious favorite when it comes to the betting odds, that being the Scottish psychopath Drew McIntyre at minus 150.
Yeah, prior to Braun Strowman being removed from the match, which, there's been plenty of stories going around backstage of why he was even removed, which in itself is kind of hilarious. Before I go off on such a tangent on Braun Strowman, has the WWE just completely dropped the ball with him? I mean, how ridiculous have they been with the momentum they had for him? And then now it's just like he's just another mid-card guy who occasionally gets a good pop when he comes out and might have a feud here or there. Sami Zayn comes back, is taking his spot. Back for like a month. He's taking Braun Strowman's spot, which I find hilarious. But my whole point was, prior to Strowman being removed, I was still leaning towards Drew McIntyre being my favorite to win the match. But the funny thing happened along the way as I was writing my preview and doing a little research and reading more of those online dirt sheets, as they call it. I keep coming across the fact that the WWE still loves Baron Corbin. Not the WWE Universe, probably not even his peers, but the WWE brass, namely Vince McMahon, still plans on pushing this guy. And having him beat Kurt Angle, having him just cleanly beat Ricochet the other day on Raw, getting involved in eliminating Strowman. I have a hard time looking past Baron Corbin in this match, even though in my article I picked Drew McIntyre to win.
Yeah, he's one of two competitors in this match that have won Money in the Bank before, the other being Randy Orton, who cashed in on Daniel Bryan way back when. But Corbin, I know this is the internet, so this is not a great thing to say on the internet, but I like Baron Corbin from the perspective that I hate Baron Corbin, but that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to want to like Baron Corbin. He's a true heel he's one of very few guys that are such pure, just want to hit them in the face kind of heels, where there isn't even that oh, he's a heel, but I respect him, and so I cheer for him, like The Miz got to towards the end of his heel run before he went babyface. But I would say the interesting thing with both of these Money in the Bank matches is that you can always look at least a few of the guys and probably rule them out pretty quickly. Ricochet is probably in that what was the Kofi Kingston spot in these types of matches, or the Royal Rumble, where it's the guy who can fly around, flip around, the Jeff Hardy, the Kofi Kingston position.
Well, they got two of those guys in this match now with Ali also, and for me, you can write both those guys off. And like I said in my article, I think next year those guys will have a better chance of winning this match. Right now, they're more of the spot people that are going to do the fancy, crazy, breathtaking spots like you were alluding to.
The only thing with Ali that separates him from me is that he was in what is currently Kofi Kingston's position as WWE champion before he had an injury and had to miss a pay-per-view or network special, whatever you want to call it. He's a guy who, if you go back 3 months, 4 months, was going to be the guy because he had that groundswell of support. It's possible that they could use this to try to check that again, to see if he's worth it, and then to build him at some point, wherever it may be, in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or up to a year, to do that. He's kind of as far as the long shots go, he's the only one that I really have any interest in, as far as maybe because he's, 10-1. Andrade is the only other guy who's close to, even money. He's plus 250. He's a guy who he was outstanding in NXT, so it'd be great to see him get a push. but I don't know that he necessarily will. I think McIntyre's the obvious choice. Sami Zayn is probably going to get taken out by Braun Strowman. They're going to work him into the pay-per-view that way. Zayn will get taken out. That'll start their feud or continue their feud. Orton would be a weird one to see. I'd probably count him out. Balor's already got the IC belt.
Yeah.
So
For me, it's Balor or Corbin. Balor's the favorite. Corbin's the value bet.
yeah. So and McIntyre obviously is the betting favorite too.
Yeah. Sorry, I mean McIntyre's the favorite. Balor not.
Right.
I don't know why he's in the match.
Yeah, Ali's just the guy who I could see that being like if they go with the shock, like to make the fans happy. Baron Corbin's the shock to piss people off. Mustafa Ali is the shock to make the fans go crazy. So it depends on what side of the bed Vince McMahon wakes up on. So let's go over to the women's match because we did have a change in this lineup. Alexa Bliss was supposed to be in, announced as not being medically cleared. She was plus 700. She's been replaced by Nikki Cross, who is now the longest shot to win at plus 1400. No minus 110 favorite here. Mandy Rose, the shortest odds at plus 225, followed by Bayley at plus 275. Who are you picking? Because I know that Mandy Rose is someone who it seems like would be the perfect person to give that briefcase to and to wait till the time is right for a cash in.
Prior to the Alexa news, I had her like with Baron Corbin as my value pick for this match because of her odds. Before they went to plus 700, they were plus 1,000. And, she's a former winner. She's a former world champ. And she's one of the best female wrestlers on the entire roster. And so it just made a lot of sense. And now with Nikki Cross there as her bestie, or even if you just want to call them BFFs, that would help a lot. And it would be funny, actually, if Nikki Cross wins the match and gives the briefcase to Alexa Bliss, which wouldn't surprise me if the WWE put that out there this weekend. But for me, I'm still going with my pick, which was Mandy Rose. Even though she's the odds-on favorite, I think it's time for her to be elevated. I think the briefcase is primarily used to elevate somebody like that that's already at the mid-card range. They want to get them up to the main event or the upper card, whatever you want to call it, range. Just like with Carmella over the last couple of years when she got the first couple of them. I think it's time for Mandy Rose. Corey Graves is probably going to text me and blow me up today, agreeing with me. But we're going Mandy Rose here. I think it's time for her to really get on that next level. They need more main events. I've seen a lot of people pick Bayley. I just don't feel like Bayley serves that purpose right now. Can still be a main event wrestler without the briefcase. The briefcase should be used to help someone become a main event wrestler.
Yeah. In
terms of main event talent, maybe not main event an actual pay-per-view or anything, but main event talent for the women's roster, it has to be Mandy Rose.
Yeah, I mean, there's four to write off at the start. It's Dana Brooke, Natalya, Naomi, and Carmella. Carmella's already won one, and she's in a different spot than she was when she won, was it 2 years ago? She technically won twice, thanks to James Ellsworth. But, so those four, they're all plus 1,000 or greater. I don't really see that as possible. Bayley, as far as the three that are kind of like the short odds, I agree with you. And it's also one of those things where Bayley doesn't get those pushes. She doesn't get that thing. And it's also something with her and Sasha where if they're going to move away from them being in tag team competition, if Sasha's, whatever her situation actually ends up being, it doesn't fully make sense to me. If they're going to go with a babyface that's got short odds, Ember Moon is someone that would go, you got to make the pun of she'd be over the moon to get that, just be a huge boost for her. She's someone who's incredibly talented. She hasn't gotten that.
She deserves it. They dropped the ball on her too. That's why I can't go with Moon. I can't put my money on her because the WWE's dropped the ball on her. She was great in NXT. She comes up. She has a little run in the beginning, and then now she's been irrelevant. Mandy Rose has consistently climbed from meaningless feuds, tag team, some more major attention to her and stuff. Obviously, she's got the look. Her in-ring skills have gotten better. She's got Sonya Deville to help her out whenever needed. And that's usually what WWE likes to do, is have that little crony or lackey, ever since Briscoe and Patterson used to help Vince McMahon all the time. It seems like they have to do that in storylines now all the time. So I'm going with Mandy Rose. You know, hey, if I'm wrong, then the WWE is going to do something a little less obvious, and it might make things more exciting. But right now, you know, other than Bayley and Mandy Rose, and now with Bliss out, the rest of them don't really. I wouldn't give them a chance at winning.
Nikki is the only one that's really interesting to me because WWE has that habit of when there is a last-second substitution that the sub wins. Because everybody goes into any match. If Kevin Owens had to sit out, because we're going to get to that match next, if he had to sit out of the match with Kofi Kingston and they had to replace him with anybody in that championship match last second, everyone would go, oh, well, obviously Kofi Kingston is not going to drop the belt to someone he wasn't even supposed to face. And that's why that's a swerve that they love to do. So it is one of those things. I don't know if she would give it to Alexa Bliss. I could see Bliss manipulating her eventually into losing it to her, which would be an interesting story arc where you could have Alexa trying to, if that's what they were trying to do, if they were trying to get the briefcase to Alexa. But Mandy seems like the obvious one. Ember's kind of like I wish they would do that pick for me. And Nikki's that long shot that just because WWE likes to do that, where they like to put in that substitution last second and have them go over, that I can't fully rule that out yet because she's also just crazy enough. But what I'm really hoping to see in that match is I want to see an eclipse from the ladder. Doesn't have to be from the top of the ladder. I want Ember Moon to scale halfway, or if there's one outside that she can go over the ropes and in. I want to see an eclipse done from the ladder in some way. That would make that whole match worth it to me. That's the spot I'm looking for.
Okay.
Let's go to the WWE Championship match. Kofi Kingston favored the champion against Kevin Owens, the challenger, minus 200 for Kofi, plus 150 for KO. KO returning, joined the New Day briefly as a Big E substitute, and then did Kevin Owens things and turned. Any chance that Kofi Kingston ends up dropping the belt at Money in the Bank to Kevin Owens?
Nope. And honestly, I'm surprised the odds aren't greater, like closer to Rollins AJ Styles match.
Yeah.
I'm a Kevin Owens fan. Like, I've liked him since Ring of Honor, and I really think he should be the champ at some point. But
again,
they're gonna ride it out with Kofi for a bit. You know, I was reading how he's got his tour of Ghana, his home country, at the end of this month. So WWE's picked up on it, and they're pushing it. He's going to tour the country, visit where he, you know, grew up, meet the president, see all these tourist sites, do a children's rally. You honestly think they're going to send somebody who just lost the world title with all of that? No. Kevin Owens, the feud will probably continue. Personally, I would like to see Owens and Zayn team up more again. I love them teaming together. And then, you know, maybe somehow they get involved in the match because I don't want to see Kofi win cleanly. I honestly am done with the whole Kofi experiment, but that's just me. So, but he'll win. He'll keep it going for at least another pay-per-view.
I really like Kofi. I'm, you know, happy to see him get the opportunity and to get everything. The WrestleMania moment was amazing. That whole storyline with Bryan was outstanding. I don't think this is where that ends, at least not, you know, to Kevin Owens if it's going to be Sunday night. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the odds should be flipped for the championship matches because the Universal Championship match, Seth Rollins is minus 400 to retain. AJ Styles is plus 250 to become the new champion. And I feel like those odds should be the minus 200 plus 150, like that it's backwards because if there's going to be one, and it would be weird to see an entire Money in the Bank show with no championship changing hands in any way. Which I know that, and we're not going to get into the match of the Samoa Joe versus Rey Mysterio, where that's the only real other opportunity aside from the women's championships and this one. But I mean, I would think Rollins retains here as well, just because, I mean, he beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, clean or not, or, you know, dirty or not. He beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania for the title. I can't see him losing.
Belts. Yeah, both world champs are going to keep the belts. Neither underdogs are worth taking a flyer on. It's just a waste of money. You have some other opportunities. take the value picks in the latter matches instead of trying to bet on an underdog here for this match. I've said it for probably 15 years. I'm a huge fan of AJ Styles, and I would love to have him win the belt, but it's not happening. Rollins is going to carry it for a lengthy amount of time. Rumor has it him and Baron Corbin are going to feud here in the near future. So I don't see Styles winning it. Not at all. I don't see Kevin Owens winning it at all. I think we're going to go at least another month with the Kofi Mania going. And same for Seth Rollins. He's the face of Raw. He's their top baby face. He's one of their top stars and one of the best workers in the ring. So, even if he keeps the belt, at least he's going to continue with really good matches, which are more believable than Kofi getting in there with some of these guys and putting on these great matches. Like, I don't take away anything from Kofi. He earned the right to become a champ after his lengthy amount of time there, but he's not an exciting champion. Like, the excitement was him getting there. Now, as a champ, they're doing everything they can to keep him interesting. Seth Rollins, on the other hand, they don't have to do nearly as much to keep him interesting because he's a great wrestler in the ring. He's a better talker on the mic. He's got a better look. And he's going to put on just as good, if not a better match, because he's got the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, as an opponent.
Yeah. Well, let's go over to the women's championship matches. Becky, 2 belts, 2 matches at least. Money in the Bank. Do we agree that she's going to win both of these and retain both of these championships against Lacey Evans for the Raw and Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown?
I think it would be absolutely ridiculous. But then again, the WWE has been ridiculous many times before. It would be absolutely ridiculous to have Becky Lynch lose either of the belts. Obviously, both belts, but either of them would be ridiculous. I love Charlotte Flair. I think she's one of the greatest wrestlers on the entire roster in multiple generations. Like, she is amazing. But you don't build up Becky like this just to have her lose a belt. If anything, I'm really hoping that Charlotte doesn't get pinned cleanly and someone interferes and they have that whole fiasco. I would prefer to see Lacey Evans come out and interfere in that match because it would keep her relevant, because there's no way she's beating Becky Lynch. Not at all. At least the Charlotte and Becky lines are closer, according to online betting sites. But that Lacey Evans-Becky line, that's about as wide as the Rollins Styles one.
Wider.
And for me, that's that was my easy money pick of the week on our Odds on Favorites podcast, because there's no way Lacey's going to beat Becky. Not to win the title, nothing. No.
Yeah,
Becky belts is leaving with 2 belts.
Yeah, I can't see them moving away from Becky Lynch having 2 championships at this point. I'm wondering, and we'll get into it in a second, if she'll end up fighting 2 matches or 3 on Sunday night, because that's, I feel like that might be the obvious storyline for them to do, where she's, she beats whatever order they go. The only way that Lacey Evans even stands a remote chance is if her match is somehow the second one of the 2. Yeah. If they put on Becky Charlotte first. But, it kind of reminds me a little bit of when Seth Rollins had the U.S. Championship and it would have been the World Universal, I think, way back when, and he had to defend the U.S. against Cena and then defend it was the World against Styles, I think, in the same night. He ended up losing the belt back to Cena and then retaining the main. But I don't see them having her drop either. I mean, she's been the biggest thing going in the company for weeks and weeks and months and months. And aside from if they do the cash-in thing, and even then I could see if they go a direction on the Money in the Bank ladder match that is, like, I'm looking through if they had Carmella win it again, just as a random thing, not that I think she is, or Naomi, or Dana Brooke. Like, if they do like a weird winner for that match, they could have Becky win 3 times on Sunday. If they're really just trying to catapult her and say that she's on an entirely separate level.
We'll find out Sunday how much they still believe in the man.
Right. And the last thing we want to touch on is there's a prop bet on how many briefcases will be cashed in. 2 will be distributed. Up to 2 could be cashed in. There's a full year. We both agree, because we were talking about it on the podcast, that cashing in 2 has never happened. And to do that, to throw away the Money in the Bank storyline for an entire year, it just seems ridiculous. At plus 400, not worth it because it's not happening. It would be the most ridiculous thing in the world if it did. 0 is at plus 100, so even money. 1 is at minus 140. I lean towards 0, but that 1 could be interesting. Again, if Becky retains twice and they go with a weird winner for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, I could see someone like Naomi, Carmella, or Dana Brooke just like trying to cash in immediately, and Becky just getting in the disarm her in like 45 seconds. That's the only way I see it being 1, though. I think 0 is the best bet.
0 at plus 100 odds
Plus 100.
is a fantastic bet, fantastic value. It's one of the best values you're going to get on the entire card. And we talked about it, and I even put it in my article. There's only been 3 times that the briefcase has been cashed in on the same show as they won it. So at the Money in the Bank or whatever other pay-per-view they had it, there's only been 3 times that's been cashed in on the show. Last year being Alexa Bliss. And all 3 were successful. And other than that, with that said, we've got 18 other times where they didn't cash it in right away. So the math is in favor of that. The storylines is in favor of that. We like these extreme ideas that we can throw out there. The problem is the WWE has really slacked in terms of exciting or surprising storylines as of late, which is why the ratings have gone down overall. I just don't see any of that happening. What I'm hoping for more than anything, and I've talked to you about this before, what I'm really hoping for, and I know we weren't going to talk about this match, but I got to say it, I'm really hoping that Dominic turns on his father, causes his father to lose the match, and reveals a cheat to win or a Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero t-shirt on underneath. To me, I wouldn't pop more than anything than for that moment, right? I would go insane. I'd run naked through the streets if that were to happen. WWE, Dominic, Ray, if you hear me, pull it off.
If they do that, the next show out, Samoa Joe has to walk out with Dominic. Dominic could be wearing that shirt, and Joe's got to be wearing an I'm Your Poppy shirt. That would be insane. I'm hoping for the Vicky Guerrero reference. If we're in that position, they could just be, Dominic could be staring down Ray and just, where's Vicky? Where's Vicky? Just like in that, Dominic's papers on a pole match.
They can bring Vicky back. She can team up with Samoa Joe and Dominic. I mean, it would be amazing. It would be so much better than 95% of the crap that WWE throws out there on TV and hope sticks. It's terrible. I can't wait for All Elite to come out later this year and we have another show to watch because WWE has been stale so much. That's why when you get into a pay-per-view like this, it's normally exciting and you have some exciting possibilities. It's hard to think they're actually going to pull off and that's going to be really exciting other than a few spots or something like that. Like we discussed, the Nikki Cross angle would probably be the best thing to do in that match. It would make it the most exciting, but obviously WWE is not going to do that. They'll probably go with Mandy Rose, which, by the way, she's hot, so I can't blame that, And in the men's match, Drew McIntyre, Baron Corbin, they wouldn't do something like Ricochet or Ali unless they went extreme with Ali, So it's just like it's too obvious with some of this stuff, and that's been their biggest complaint from fans and critics. I'm getting all fired up about this.
I was talking to you about this the other day before we wrap up. My idea, because I love Money in the Bank. The idea, the briefcase is so just intriguing. It lasts for up to a year. You never know when it's going to happen. It's happened at WrestleMania, the night after WrestleMania. It's happened wherever. One thing I would love to see in the future, like maybe starting next year, is I want to see a secondary belt ladder match for the men's side where it would be, because I mentioned this to you the other day, where it would be half of the competitors would be from Raw or SmackDown and the other half would be from NXT. and the winner could cash in the briefcase for either the Intercontinental, United States Championships, or the NXT World Championship. So it would be a great way if you have a guy who is kind of floundering on the main roster and you want to send him down, but you don't want to send him down.
Half the main roster's floundering because of creative. But it would be a great idea. But you know what? Vince just buries the NXT guys like nothing else. Viking experience. I mean, come on. That's just terrible. Like, Triple H and the rest of the team down in NXT builds up these superstars. They're fantastic. You buy into them. You invest into them. They get to the main roster, which you've been waiting for, and it's hot garbage. It's Duke the Dumpster Drozy hot garbage. I mean, it's terrible.
I do have to say, though, just about that point, because the booking can be rough for NXT call-ups, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 7 participants in championship matches for the top prize, men's or women's, are from NXT. The only 2 who are not are Seth Rollins, who was FCW. He was the first NXT champion, was he not? Was he there? He was there for the crossover. So that's 6 out of 7. The only one who was not is Kofi Kingston.
AJ was in NXT. He came right.
That's right. He went straight up. Yeah, he was the Royal Rumble debut.
Why? Because he's the phenomenal one. That's why. Shows up right at Rumble.
So Kofi Kingston and AJ Styles were the only 2 in the major championship matches of 7 competitors who were not at one point in NXT. And if you go to the U.S. Championship match, Samoa Joe was in NXT. You can
look how long
main
it
roster
took for him.
Oh, absolutely. His main roster has been rough.
Joe was a beast in NXT. He had such an incredible resume before he even got to NXT. Then he gets up to the main roster, up and down, and he becomes nothing. Robert Roode's another perfect example. Oh, my God.
If you look, the favorite to win the men's Money in the Bank, which is Drew McIntyre, NXT former champion. He was in WWE before that, but it was NXT and the independents before that made him the Scottish psychopath instead of being 3MB, as entertaining as they may have been in hindsight. But Kevin Owens, former NXT champion, Seth Rollins, former FCW and NXT champion, Becky Lynch, former NXT women's, no, she wasn't a women's champion, but competitor, remember the 4 Horsewomen, Charlotte Flair, former NXT women's divas champion, whatever the belt was going by at the time. Lacey Evans was down there. Samoa Joe, former NXT champion. These are the people who are in championship matches. So I agree with you that it has not been perfect. Oh, and the other person walking in with a belt is Finn Balor, the IC. So former NXT champion.
He was such a stud in NXT.
But what I'm saying is that while the storylines have not been ideal for NXT call-ups, they are still prominent in the. I mean, if you look at the men's Money in the Bank, McIntyre, NXT, Andrade,
for a creative
Balor.
job. You just want to be on the creative team. You're angling for a creative spot. That's what we're doing here.
The stress level is not worth it.
These guys become anything because that's what Vince McMahon does. Years. The only reason Drew McIntyre got pushed further above because he was there before, because he was the chosen one. Oh my God.
That's true. The only competitor in the men's Money in the Bank match that was not in NXT, Randy Orton and Ali, only 2. Women's Money in the Bank, Alexa Bliss even being subbed out, she was in NXT. Natalya was not, although she's had matches down there. She was well before that. Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose, I don't recall their runs, honestly, if they were down there. So, but Ember Moon, Bayley, Carmella, Naomi, Nikki Cross. And
look what they did with Sanity, for God's sake.
Oh, yeah, no, that's...
What a great faction. Eric Young is super talented on the mic and in the ring. Nothing. They did nothing. And then they ended it for no reason. God.
I agree with you. I am in total agreement that the handling of NXT talent and the way that they get better story arcs, they get better treatment in NXT, but the idea that they are buried or not put in a prominent position. They're not set up well for that prominent position, but they're still put there.
It takes way too long.
I agreed that there should be a better way to call it up. So anyway, that's my idea for the if they wanted to do a third, they could even make that the kickoff match every year, because if they're trying to sell network subscriptions, showing what a Money in the Bank ladder match is going to be like, and having it where, like, this year you could have Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano, and you could have I'd probably have put like Andrade in that match, and like a Ricochet or the Aleister Black type people, like that kind of grouping. You'd have basically Velveteen Dream. You'd have the North American Championship ladder match from NXT TakeOver New Orleans, and you'd be using that to sell people on the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I mean, it's also to have a briefcase that would float around between NXT and Raw and SmackDown.
That would be very interesting. Unfortunately, WWE won't do that. Maybe when you get a creative writer job for that company.
Well, when Corey Graves sent you a text later on to talk about Mandy Rose, just sneak that in then.
There you go. You know what? Speaking of kickoff show, oh, how the mighty have fallen with Daniel Bryan. How does Daniel Bryan go from prominent, the main star on SmackDown, to the kickoff show? Oh my God, there's another wonderful example of tremendous WWE booking right there.
Yeah. We'll have to get into the booking stuff in a couple weeks, because obviously we've got Double or Nothing coming up, which we'll talk about. We'll have pay-per-view or network special after network special. All of that will be coming up in the future. This has been The Payoff. We're going to be looking to do a new one of these every Friday or so, discussing the storylines as they develop, random wrestling rants like what you've experienced for like the last 10 minutes or so, and of course bringing you betting lines for pay-per-views. I'm Drew Goldfarb. He's Rick Rockwell. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.